let's give a warm welcome to Sam, the only skateboarder for town. Let's learn this character introduction in Premiere Pro. Here we are at Premiere Pro. The first thing that you need to do, drag your timeline, drag your footage to the timeline window. Hit on Keep Existing Settings. While your clip selected, head over to the effects control. I think it needs some scaling, so scale it down, adjust it according to your need, and play the clip and see where you wanna freeze your timeline for the character introduction. I think that looks cool. I'm gonna freeze that timeline. We need to add the cut. For this you can use the shortcut Control K, or you can use the razor tool. I'm going to use the Control K to make a cut at the playhead. You can use the razor tool by pressing C and making cut. You can also do this. After this, I'm going to freeze this timeline. Right click on the clip, and click on Add Frame Hold. We just added the frame hold. Now what we have to do is to export this image, this frame, to our Photoshop to remove the background. And for this, to export the photo, you have to move to the program window, and from there you can see this camera button. Click on this camera button. If you don't see this camera button, head over to this plus icon and select the camera button, and then hit OK. After that, click on the camera button. It's gonna export. You can export your file as PNG, DF, JPEG, GIF, or whatever you want, but I would suggest you to export your file to PNG and name your file as background removal. Now head over to the Photoshop. Now in Photoshop we have our image ready, and now we have to remove the background. Make sure you have to select any selection tool like quick selection or object selection, magic wand, whatever you want. Make sure this tool is selected and head over towards the select and mask, and in there decrease the transparency so that you can see your subject. Now click on the button to select the subject. Photoshop is taking some time. Wow, it has done some pretty awesome job. Thank you, Photoshop. Increase the transparency and see if there is anything that you want to remove. You can always use the quick selection tool to select the areas the Photoshop has missed, or you can use Alt key while quick selection selected to remove the things, the objects, the areas the Photoshop has selected additionally. You can always use the refine tool to refine the edges of your subject, but for me, for this case, Photoshop has done a pretty good job. Hit OK. Control J. We just need our background removed. I think now we have to save this subject. We have to save this image, save as a copy as PNG. Now let's move to Premiere Pro and import the image that we have just removed the background. Drag this image above the frozen footage. Yeah, that's it. Now we need to scale it up and animate our clip over the background picture. Now head over to effects control and then Yeah, click on this stopwatch button to enable the toggle animation thing, and it's gonna create a keyframe. Make another keyframe and change its value, and position if you want. Now that looks pretty good to me. You can adjust the distance between two keyframes to increase or decrease the speed of the animation. That's good. Now my background is there's little distraction at the background, so to remove this, and we need to add some Gaussian blur. Make sure your background layer is selected, head over to the effects panel and write Gaussian blur. Drag this Gaussian blur effect on your background clip. Head over to the effects control and scroll it down. Change the blurriness to 100 and make sure the repeat edge pixel is selected. Now we need to add some black and white. For this, head over to the effects panel and write black and white. Make sure drag this black and white effects on your background clip. It's gonna add the black and white. We have done, we're halfway there. Now what we have to do, we need to add some splashes, the ink splashes. I've already downloaded some ink splashes from Google, so I'm gonna import that footages. Move your background removed clip a little above the tracks. If you're missing the tracks, you can always add some tracks by head over to the sequence and add tracks. You can add video tracks and audio tracks as well. I'm gonna add two video tracks. This looks cool. And drag your background removed copy above. After that, what you have to do is add some ink splashes that we just downloaded. Drag this footage on the timeline window and underneath the image. After that, what you have to do is to scale it up. I think that looks great. If it's giving some blur, to remove the distractions from this image, I'm going to change its blend mode to multiply. Now that's looking really great to me. Scale it up a little bit. Now what we have to do is name our character. Name our character. For this, head over to the graphics panel menu and add some text layer. I'm going to change the font to Falcon, my favorite font. I'm going to name this guy as Bob, right? Click on the selection tool to resize your text. I need some rotation, that looks great. You can always stylize your text down there in the graphics panel. You can add fill, you can add strokes, background, shadow, whatever you want. For me, it looks pretty good. Now we have to put this our text layer between the background removed image and above the ink splash. That looks pretty good. Let's head over to the editing menu and let's adjust our clips. Let's see what we got. That's pretty good. Now what we have to do, we have to change the color of our ink splashes. Make sure ink splash layer is selected and head over to the effects panel and write change to color. Change to color. Drag this effects on your ink splash clip and head over to the effects control, drag it down and change the color from black to somewhere between purplish. Oh, it's your personal preference, like whatever you like, which color you like. And make sure to change to hue, lightness and saturation. And change transforming color. Change by transforming color. That looks pretty awesome. Now what we have to do, we have to add some animation to our ink layer and the text layer. For this, make sure the ink layer is selected and head over to the effects control and enable the toggle animation button by clicking on the stopwatch button, rotation and position. Move your playhead forward and change the values of rotation. I'm gonna give this kind of rotation and some position. Move these ending keyframes at the end of your timeline and this starting keyframe to the beginning of the timeline. Now we're gonna add some animation to our text layer as well. Make sure text layer is selected, head over to the effects control and click on the stopwatch button of the rotation. It's gonna create a keyframe. Drag this keyframe at the beginning of the timeline and then give some rotation to our text. That looks great. Move your this final keyframe at the end of the timeline. Now finally we have a good leaking character introduction